Diane Campbell, and our stormwater technician and code compliance, Colton Love. And then it looks like we have Tyler Monk and Mark McConkey, right, from Blackstone. We also have Mayor Alder in attendance with us today. So I guess my first question is, where are you at on this? I mean, we got the letter from Mike. So Tyler, maybe you and Mark want to come up and sit at this table so you can talk into the microphone. We don't have a staff report on this. I didn't have Diane put together a staff report because, like I said, we are kind of reviewing and workshopping all at the same time. So,
and that's fine. Mark and I weren't sure what this meeting was either, so we will try to help as we can here.
Okay, so as you know, your property that you would like to develop is a portion of your property is in the Zone A floodplain, FEMA floodplain area, and that's an area with a 1% annual chance of flooding and a 26% chance of flooding over the life of a 30-year mortgage. It says because detailed analysis are not performed for such areas, no depths or place-based flood elevations are shown within these zones. That's why we come to you and ask you to be responsible for that. The base flood elevation is the water surface elevation of the 1% annual chance flood event. It is the height in relation to mean sea level expected to be reached by the waters of the base flood at pertinent points in the floodplains of coastal and riverine areas. It is also the elevation shown on the firm and found in accompanying flood insurance studies. And it indicates the water surface elevation resulting from the flood that has a 1% chance of equaling or exceeding that level in a given year. When we consider a project, we had to adopt an ordinance recently because, as you know, FEMA updated their map and on May 12th, and we had to have our ordinance adopted just prior to that. And so in our new ordinance, the way it reads, we have some stuff that we need to consider when we're going to approve building in a flood area. And the first one is danger to life and property due to flooding or erosion damage, the susceptibility of the proposed facility and its contents to flood damage, and the effect of such damage on the individual owner, the danger that materials may be swept onto other land to the injury of others, the compatibility of the proposed use with existing and anticipated development, the safety of access to property in times of flood for ordinary and emergency vehicles, the cost of providing governmental services during and after flood conditions, including maintenance, repair of streets and bridges, and public utilities and facilities such as sewer, gas, electrical, water systems, the expected height, velocity, duration, rate of rise and sediment transport of the floodwaters, and the effective wave action if applicable. We don't have to worry about the wave action, I hope. The necessity to the facility of the waterfront location where applicable, the availability of alternative locations not subject to flooding or erosion for the proposed use, and the relationship of the proposed use to the comprehensive plan for that area. For a construction for any new residential or non-residential, we require elevation certificate to be completed. We require a proposed conditions elevation certificate is required to be completed by the professional and licensed engineer, surveyor, or architect as part of the floodplain permit package. And then at the time that it's finished construction, a finished construction elevation certificate is required to be completed by a professional and licensed engineer, surveyor, or architect. Once the structure is completed, utilities are installed, and grading and landscaping has been completed. So, any questions on any of that? Does that sound new, different?
No, that's good.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, Michael Taylor provided us with an analysis for the Blackstone product headquarters. And how would you like to do this? Do you want Tyler to review it? Do you want to ask questions about it? How do you want to have it? Do you want to have it?
I don't know if you guys have a question. I've read through it and I may have a couple things I want to ask here, but I if you guys have questions, if you look through it, any concerns?
Yeah, I think we, Max, something you recall, I think a while back when we first came out, you had a few questions.
Yeah.
I think we resolved those, right?
Yeah.
Because there was the 2000 CFS. And
Yeah, good point. I mean, so yeah, maybe you guys didn't know that. I don't know if you didn't know that, but yeah, Tyler and I went back and forth a little bit on it. So there were a few comments that I'd given him when he did first, and I was just looking at just now to remember how much it changed. So the flow rate changed slightly. We suggested that maybe he could use a different method to come up with that flow rate. He did that. And then there was a slope difference in there on the calculations. I was just looking at the one cross section, looked like it raised the base flood elevation maybe 3 times with the change in slope that they did. And a few things like that. But yeah, I think most of my comments and concerns were addressed through that process on this particular report. So,
and you may recall as well, there was conversations when we were looking at this along with the plan set, the sewer manholes that we had out in that zone, right? And there was some concern about making sure those are protected within this area. We had conversations about what protected means, and if that is, usually we think in terms of 1 foot above BFE when we think of our structures and stuff, right? We had some discussions with the city about that, and I also had discussions with Michael Taylor about that as well. And from my recollection, what we've done here is we made sure that in the project that our sewer manholes are above the base flood elevation. They are not the full foot above, which in our conversations we all decided might have been a little really conservative for sewer manholes, where usually that's for a structure, a building. So if in our plans, if I recall right, our sewer manholes are usually around 3/10 above the BFE to make sure we do have some clearance there, and they're not sticking up out of the ground of making these volcanoes out there. So that's kind of how we've applied this report back to the plan set. But that's those are the questions I remember the city had along the lines, and I feel like we've addressed those as we went through.
Okay. So then my question on the plan set, and maybe I'm just a dummy, and maybe it was because I didn't pull it up big enough on my screen or something, but which page do you document in this set of plans all of the floodplain information?
So the image, I know in the past you asked for an image that shows where that floodplain is. So we have that in the report. If you'd like it, just paste it into the plan set, we can get it into there. If that would be better for the documentation for the city,
I think our permit, and I apologize, Tyler, because this is a new permit that
You're fine.
we're using. So, and I try to research my memory on it. So in the report you gave us, you show where the flood, this is the map you're talking about, right?
There's one that has, it's on yeah, it's like second from the end, actually has the black site laid in there.
Okay.
So you kind of see where that lands relative to the actual building versus kind of the backyard area.
Okay.
and mainly the reason we wanted that, from what I recall, Rob, you correct me if I'm wrong, that I think we really wanted that because as we were looking at some of the sewer manholes, trying to determine, were they or were they not above the base flood elevation?
Yeah, right.
We weren't sure which ones were in, which ones were out. And so it was a little bit hard. And I remembered seeing this. I just didn't remember where I'd seen it at. I thought it was on the plan set.
Right.
So like, why did that get pulled out? But yeah, it's here. And I just thought that also it might be useful for the contractors and everyone to just understand, even into the future, if you're ever looking at, wow, why is this underwater, or why is this area flooded or something like that? to refer to this and say, oh, well, we knew all along it's going to be that way because it shows the base flood right here. So just, I think it would be helpful from that perspective. But again, I'm not so sure that it has to be the plans. I mean, this document here would be fine for us to go and see that.
Because we have, I mean, we have, and as you know, Max, with these engineering reports and whatnot, we have a lot of data behind the scenes here that we don't, it doesn't all just make it into the report with lots of numbers and stuff, right? But we have, I believe it's 3 different cross sections through the river. And when they modeled that flow and they were getting that VFD elevation as we go downstream, we were able to take those cross sections and build the contours into it and build that line out as something more defined than the SFHA zone. And so we have all that information. If we can, definitely we can bring it into one of the sheets on the plan set and show those and just pinpoint a few elevations across it. If we feel like that would help, you know, we have that data. So, and I think what I've gathered from you, Max, is you feel like that would be a helpful add. So we can put that.
Yeah, I don't know that it's something we could or even should mandate or anything, but yeah, it just felt like to me it was useful to have, you know, in the plan set for the contractors and all, you know, to see. But again, I actually, when we made that comment, I was thinking it was in the plan set for some reason had been removed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so I was like, well, why are we doing that?
Why are we taking it out?
So that was my mistake. But I don't know, Rob, do you have a feeling on that? I mean, would you like to see this part of the construction plan?
They are phasing it as far as the landscaping back there with those manholes, so long term, help people understand why they're at the elevation they are, and when it comes to different forms of mastic to keep water out of manholes, make sure we get the right sections on there, mastic and on a bunch of grade rate, let water through. So I'm off with the plan.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
I think it would be cleaner that way. I could go either way, honestly, but I do think it would be cleaner. I just want it so that, not just so that the city has it, I want to make sure that that there's something that travels with the property so that the property owners understand their obligations too. I find that a lot of times we do great things and we protect the city and we protect the property owner and they don't realize that we're protecting them. And then as time goes on, they make some changes internally that they don't either, there's not a need to report them to us at the time or they don't know to. And so I just think it's really important in an area like this that there's some kind of documentation, whether it's in the report, in some kind of, whether we end up reporting our development permit along with it or something, but something so that future owners of that property know what their obligation is when it comes to taking care of buildings in that area. Does that make sense? So mine is more of, yes, I like Rob's idea, but I would like to figure out, and maybe it is just the permit that we report with documentation to it of mine and making sure that we have something reported that goes with that shows that you did your homework, we did our homework, and future people could count on that.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, do you have any comments you want to?
Don't. There's nothing more to add than what you guys have already had. So.
Colton, do you have any?
No.
So I guess I'm just have some questions. On the phasing, there's a couple of storm water ponds that look like they're, or maybe the phasing line is the blue line.
It jogs around those, so those will go in with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so really what's being phased is just a recreational amenity.
Yeah. Yes, and my understanding, and Mark, if I'm wrong, is those will come with time and so they're just not part of the main campus from the get-go.
That's right. Okay.
And these guys decide they really need to start playing pickleball, we'll start getting some of that.
Okay. I'll have to think about that, Mark, and you'll have to think about that and help me with the development agreement on that, because, we don't require a lot on, as far as bonding and stuff goes on private infrastructure, but there is some that we have to look at, and so you'll just have to kind of work through that internally and let us know timeframe wise, so that we can make sure that we don't hold the CFO up on the big building waiting for something that maybe is not gonna be for quite a while, so.
Yeah, it wouldn't be till after completion of phase one, which, you know, about 2 years.
You can probably be fully moved in and everything.
Yeah.
And life moving ahead of then move to some of that.
Okay.
It probably won't be parallel.
Well, I didn't think there would be. I just wanted to make sure that it's very clear in our development agreement what, I don't think we talked about phase two. Okay. So I'll have to add that in. Any questions or comments that you have? So once we get their permit, looking at if the information comes in with this documentation that they've already provided, do you see any hiccups with approving the floodplain permit?
Well, potentially one, and I don't want to jinx anything here. Somebody's telling me to shut up if I'm out of line here, but item number 5 does say that if the construction has not commenced within 3 months, the issuance of this permit expires. So I don't know, if we're quote approving it today, then do we need to address that, because you may or may not be constructed 3 months from today. I hope you are.
But I don't think we can actually approve it since they haven't actually.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. So then that brings the question up. I guess it's maybe part of our motion today. Then maybe needs to be. Maybe that's where you're headed. I don't know. But yeah, how do we address those two issues? The fact that we don't have a filled out permit yet,
Right.
and also the idea that potentially you could approve a permit and then expire in 3 months before they get constructed. Can we waive that? I mean, is that an ordinance that we can't mess with, or how do we do that? Or do we wait until they are within 3 months of construction and then approve? Maybe that's the answer to it. I don't know.
I can get the application filled out today and, you know, submit it. I think our goal is to get, notices to proceed at least out to major sites and have them begin doing work within 3 months. We're trying to kind of beat winter, with some of the work is more expensive.
If it was approved in 3 months, then you can always come back and issue an extension if it doesn't start. That would be the other option, is to be able to be open for, if it does get approved and then they're not 3 months, then that would be an extension process rather than a new process.
Yeah.
So I guess what we can do, is we've had this meeting to kind of clear up any questions, so your permit should be pretty much good to go when we get it. And we can wait, and when you have reached out to your subs and feel like you have a construction time frame, we as a body can meet again and do a formal approval of the permit, and then you might make that part of the motion, though, even at that time, that we anticipate construction will start in 3 months, and they'll need to come back to us and ask for an extension or something.
Yeah.
That said, when do you anticipate construction?
They wanted to get started in July. I mean, they had been earlier, and I think still hoping to get some of those initial things done in July. I'm wondering if the development agreement needs to be completed. What other things need to be completed before we can start? It may not be entirely within our.
Well, I don't know that we've signed plans yet, have we? Yeah. I would say, I don't think that's, not saying we are not ready to, you know, but guess there's still a few hiccups on some sewer and stuff, but, so I mean, part of it's gonna be that too, the utility stuff getting worked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a floodplain permit, utility question, I think, there's a building permit, if I'm not mistaken. And then one with the county also,
No, the county is the building.
that is the building.
Yeah, the commercial one like this, that's what we're waiting on, is plan construction drawings. So then we can tell the county that your infrastructure's in the works and ready to go.
I think the big thing is still to nailing down the offsite. Because without those, probably not gonna get signed drawings from you guys. Can't get signed stuff from the county. That's kind of that chain reaction, is my understanding. That's not right to you guys. And that, I think the floodplain stuff, we can get that worked through and whatnot, but those offsite utilities are what's gonna hold that chain of events and get through that. Yeah, go.
So do we talk about that issue here or that?
You want to talk about that too, Ryan?
We can. I think we need to have and we talked getting a legal description and so we can finish the right of way. At least the city needs to have the dedication along 1700 South, 300 South, and then you need to make sure that you have a agreement between you and the other property owners to connect. And I don't know whether, because we're not involved in that piece of it, we just want to review that you have a spot that's kind of between you and the other property owners. But if we can have it on dedication and we've gotten our appraisal back, we've gotten our information, so we're just trying to work on getting legal description and paperwork so we can move it on to the next step. I know that it kind of took a turn with getting the appraisal and getting that back so we could get that taken care of. But we have that number done, and so I think we can move. We're moving forward in that direction, and so and
Those correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, those easements through the Alder property would be between Alder and the city, not west.
The ones along 1700 South.
as long as 1700 South are clearly going to be a dedication to Providence City. I believe the other ones.
Going north.
I believe the other ones would be a dedication to the city. It's just, you know, as I understand, and maybe I've understood different, and that's why it's good to talk. My understanding is you guys would have an agreement that you work out between the two of you, landowner-wise, it's going, and then you would, as part of that agreement, you dedicate it to us.
I think in my mind, when we were talking about the easement going on the Alder property, that there's definitely a need for us communicating with the adjacent property owners. And then it seemed like the proposal had been to move the line under the existing road, and that was going to, the way I understood it, not require us to work with the property owners, with the city would be.
At that point, if you don't work with a property owner, then you have to work with Logan City. We don't have any control over a portion of that road. That's the
I
That's
think
the
you're talking
issue.
about 165.
I thought you were talking
I'm
about
thinking the-
1700 south.
there is the-
Right.
So we have to come. But then it continues, by the time we get to the other property owners, we're east of the Lebanon boundary, I believe. So I was thinking that then. when-
If it's within our right of way that we already have, we're good to go. If we need more right of way in order to avoid a conflict with the storm drain or during construction or any of that, then other landowners would have to be there. And my understanding is we were coming down, at least the plan had been to come down that south side. I don't have the ability to give you access into Logan's Road. I just don't. And it sounds like if we go into Logan's Road, we've got other dominoes that they're going to request. And they're going to require whether they should or shouldn't. It sounds like they're going to have that. And they said they'd get us back agreements or examples, and I haven't gotten it. So if we have to go in there, so if we can go in the adjacent landowner, and if that works, then that seems like it flowed easiest. Then you're not having to tear out and replace the whole road. But if that's where you want to be, we just need to make sure that's the case. But I think the path, having it to the south, out of the, if we can get the landowner to agree, I guess that's the point, right?
You touched on a couple of good points there, but ultimately you're gonna have to work with that adjacent to the property owner because that off-site easement dead end turns out, it doesn't make it to the lift station. No matter how you spin it, we're gonna get to that lift station and we can't get there by being in probably the current right away. So there's a hiccup with that adjacent property owner not having dedicated it or figured out how that right of way is gonna change in order to get to that lift station.
Right. And yeah, I think, and that's all understood. I think my initial question is more the utility corridor, the utility easement coming from the Blackstone north property line as it goes through Alder up to 1700 South. That corridor, since this will be a public utility, that easement agreement would be between Alder and Providence City.
Would be a dedication to, so I don't know, he's talking about an easement agreement. It's really them giving us the access to the property. It's a one-way
Yeah.
give you, it's a gift kind of a thing or a transfer kind of thing. Say, hey, we'll give you, so agreement wise, when I talk about agreement, you guys got to figure out how that's going to work out. But yeah, we received, we'll talk about it as a gift. We receive it. We receive the easement and it's held in ours so that it can go through, you're covered, the city's covered to maintain it.
I'm just saying Blackstone doesn't give that, it's Alder.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
it's not Blackstone's
right.
property,
It's
so
just,
that-
right. It's just yours because you have a need. You just
Yeah.
working out with
It's our
them.
need going through there and Alder.
Right.
So ultimately, that
Ultimately,
is between Alder and having that easement.
yeah. And you just have to negotiate for them to do it.
Right, and the one along 1700 South would be the same because it would be outside of the right of way.
Right.
So it would still be between Alder and city. Blackstone will just kind of be spearheading the happening of that because it's the first project going
Right.
in.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback on that, because it would still be between the city and Alder, I guess I wasn't aware that we needed to be then pursuing the conversation with those additional ones. I thought the city was.
The landowners to the east, we were talking extermination
Yeah.
and Jerry Thickett and whatnot.
So
That
Fickus
the force main.
is already there and they have contract documents they're supposed to build. Their gravity side and whatever it's supposed to be. Logan Extermination, because it's a developed property, we've reached out to them because of undeveloped and your need. The negotiation, as I understood, was you were directing path and if there was any, you build it to give it however your agreement for it to happen, but the receiver of the easement is the city. So,
Right, and from the lift station going east, the force main, from the lift station is the city's design, and the force main going east is all city. No, we're not heading that up. Blackstone is getting the gravity sewer to the lift station location.
right, you're gonna get the
That is it.
idea is that you're getting gravity to the lift station. We're gonna give you the lift station design and have your contractor build it during that. And if the development agreement gets approved, then we pay for that piece of the puzzle. And then we have that. And then the force main from the lift station to Ficus's, because Ficus's, they're supposed to have theirs. They were supposed to, right? Whether it's all designed or not, they're supposed to. That one needs designed, and I don't know whether you're working on that. Yeah. So force main there.
Yes.
I think
So
that's
where you're talking to the east, where you're talking extermination of Pickle, that is not.
but you got to go west to the lift station, and that's the Logan piece. That's why it's either Alder or Logan, and either one, Providence can't give you access to get to the lift station.
Yeah, I think we're on.
Yeah,
Same page there.
that makes sense. And I think my last, understanding was that the path through Logan and under the street was kind of where things were trending. That Alter had kind of, backed away from granting the easement to us.
I think we should maybe ask that question of them again, just to make sure. Just to make sure, because I think outside of Logan's, he's gonna make things a little easier to have one less entity in the mix. But
It
that's,
does, but we then also incorporate a new entity with all the power, which is a kind of a chain reaction.
you want them in, you certainly have them in. That's okay. If you have another reason,
Yeah,
I don't.
that when
Oh.
we were looking at that south of the roadway, we were looking at those possible health reasons there. That was one hiccup that kind of stood in our way still, was
Power.
trying to fit those sewer lines in there with all of the current power pole infrastructure.
If you have it designed that way and whatever works best, just Providence can't give you either side of that.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think
that's where and so once you get that figured, whoever, and they give us the right, then we'll keep it, maintain it. And
And I think seeing these issues is what, and the time it's taking is what was pushing us to the possible septic system conversation. That is where I revisited that conversation with Bear River Health. And kind of like I explained in the email, I talked with them about a year ago. They were having the nitrate issue with Millville. Millville was putting out a lot of money and grants and stuff for their sewer system. So the answer was really, we're right on the Millville boundary. Bear River Health would not approve a system. When I called them back this year, they said, hey, actually our nitrate levels dropped. They would be totally open to allowing just a septic system to go in. And so they said, but obviously they only have part of that authority and you guys would have the other part, that the city would have to be accepting of that.
I talked to them today, and I talked to the director today, and I'm not sure where the nitrate discussion came from. So I guess I got to get a contact from you, because
Richard Worley.
he was on the phone with me today and didn't test for that.
Okay, that it was very clear when you talked to me.
Anyway, not to put him on,
Yeah.
we're in a public meeting and not to put him on
Yeah,
the spot.
no, we can revisit that with him, but yeah, I explained to him our flow amount, our expectations with that. And the answer was that he didn't see any problem with it. He would talk with, I believe, Grant Coper, the ultimate manager. I think that was the gentleman, but he said he didn't foresee them having any issues with that. And so as long as we had clearance from Providence City, it was highly likely we would have clearance from them. And so then when we talked, we thought, well, maybe that's our path forward for the next 5-6 years, but we would still build a sewer system on site that would get a pipe to our property line, where as Alder develops, we could then hook in and abandon the septic. but it might be a faster path forward to help Blackstone get moving, get into their building, and be established for 5, 6, 7 years as this master plan gets worked out. And then they would have a connection ready on site to then just abandon, connect, and be set up that.
At this point, Chair, I guess this is, we've gone and sidetracked off the agenda. I'd say we come back. If you're going to close the meeting, this is probably something we need to talk to.
Yeah,
And maybe when you have that and you're new guy, maybe we can sit down and just kind of catch up. So, sorry about that.
No worries.
Sorry for the tangent.
No worries, it's okay. Because it is part of the overall site development to make sure that we have everything lined up and in the agreement appropriately. So, that being
It
said,
directly relates to the streamline thing.
it does directly relate to that. So I think what we need to do in today's meeting is just treat it as a workshop. You get a little closer to time frame, then we will have, you'll submit your permit. We'll schedule another meeting to review that and make sure that everything is still what we anticipated it to be. And then we can deal with the approval and the time frame on the permit as well. So I don't know necessarily then that we need a motion, other than that we're just going to wait until they're ready to submit a permit and then come back and meet. So
I do have one curiosity question, Tyler, maybe you can answer this. And I don't know if you looked at this, but based on your base flood elevation calculated, how did that relate, or did you check at all how that related to the flooding that we saw this spring, this past spring?
I don't think we went out and compared there.
Good.
Probably would have been a good way to check the numbers, right?
I didn't go down and look at
Yeah, I didn't go
the
out.
Blackstone property, so I was curious how far up on the property the flooding came this springtime.
Yeah, did you hit
I walked out once, I don't think it was at peak levels, but, I mean, there's the alfalfa now that's being cut, and then as you get close to the flood, maybe even at the floodplain line, grass, just native grass grows, and it was starting to get motion from there. Nothing on the alfalfa area.
and Tyler, you're leaving, right?
Yeah, today's my last day. So I'm gonna do my best to pass a lot of this stuff off and keep all the information there, but I'll still be accessible to my coworker that's replacing my roles here. So
Okay.
I will be trying to keep him filled in. If he has questions, he can still call me, and I can try to keep the process moving from my perspective as far as just helping feed information that's come and gone over time. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, and that's Joey, right?
Yes.
All righty,
So for the floodplain permit to be issued, you'll wait for me to submit the application?
Yes.
And data that Tyler's submitting for
well, I think
documentation?
you just put all this package together, and then you'll need to add the sheet to the construction drawing plan set, and then you can submit all that.
But I don't think I don't think submitting the permit today or tomorrow is going to make a difference on your time frame. Like they say, once you have it, you've got those 30 days to need extension, right? They think this is probably the critical path, but it still needs to happen.
Yeah.
Critical path.
That's why we don't want you to submit the permit until you're fairly certain how you're going to proceed, so you'll know, so we can use that clock.
At one point, during the conversation with Logan, the information about different FEMA models of roads, and I think that even, that was just introduced kind of tangentially, but I think led to some questions in your mind about how long it might take to get those answered? Or,
So Max, did you have to redo anything? And
I think on that one,
about
we're,
that?
we're switching the lift station on the west side of that road out of Blackhawk to the east side for that. And so it will just swap on the, I mean, that's our expectation, is just to swap on the other side of the road. It would have been in the floodplain, but on the other side, if we, east to west swap, does that make sense? That it would be outside. So I think that is how we were going to resolve. So I think we've got that figured from our end. I think we've got that figured from the lift station side.
And we're still proceeding with our design work and whatnot on the lift station side, correct?
No, we're on hold right now.
So we have right away,
Oh,
because we need to make sure that we have a spot.
okay. So we're on hold for right away.
That's the critical path.
Okey doke. That said, I guess we could do a motion, Max, to continue this to a future meeting. It's probably the way the agenda was written. It's probably the thing to do. So would one of you like to make a motion that we, well, actually, I don't think we need one. We'll just say that thank you for your time, and we will wait until you get us, we can cross a few more T's and dot a few more I's, and you can get us the permit application. Then we will reschedule another meeting as floodplain administrator. Now, when we're not dealing with floodplain administration, and we're not dealing with commercial site plan approval, where we're dealing with, when we're dealing with just with the construction drawings and things like that, then we don't need to hold a meeting to meet. So you can reach out to any one of the three of us, and we can discuss those technical things other than the floodplain. We have to be together to discuss that as a group to be able to move forward on it. But you can certainly ask Max questions about it, or ask me questions about it, but to get the answer, we have to see to the prison. So does that make sense? Okay. All right, that being said, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and we will wait for you to submit your permit. I'm not coming out, that's not.
I'll second
Motion to adjourn by Rob Stapley, second by Max Pierce. All in favor?
it. Aye.
Aye.